Oh, hey, Austin.
So I'm currently eating, so I'm not going to have my thing on for now.
That's cool. Right now we're just looking at the Code Sandbox link that I shared.
Okay.
So this is based on the stuff that Kelsey Dodds put out regarding his handling state in React and then authentication in React. So all this really is just a single context provider and then two different versions of the same app, which is kind of funky, but and I figure I'd give it a whirl just to try it out.
Here, use auth context fake API login call. Use effect. Pushing data out of cookies or food. And verify with backend.
No.
What what is use effect with empty dependency here to pull session data out of cookies local storage? Are you talking about use effect?
So UseEffect is kind of like a mounted hook or a componented mount or something,
Right.
but for hooks. And the way to get it to behave like componented mount is to pass it an empty object. And that empty object is kind of like a watcher. So anytime that thing changes, and it's an array of things, then the effect will run again. So if you pass it empty array, it'll only run once. And so the idea is whenever this instantiates, whenever you like load the app, you could pull like a cookie out of, the browser and say like, hey, am I supposed to be logged in? And then if I am, maybe I would, double check with the backend and then flip the state to logged in. Or if it doesn't exist, like, don't even worry about it. Just go ahead and make sure that it's logged out.
So you're able to use effect in the auth provider?
Yeah,
Yes.
you should be able to.
Oh, okay.
So let's try it real
That's
quick.
not necessarily a component, yes?
What's that?
Like auth provider, is that or is that not an actual component?
It is not a component per se. Like it doesn't have any view piece to it. Like there's nothing presentational about it. But it's kind of like
any of those hooks in any function, huh?
It reminds me of like a UI bus in Vue or a what do they call them in Angular?
Services.
Service, yeah. Kind of like it comes with all the goodness of like all of your React methods or Angular methods or whatever, but doesn't necessarily have any presentational stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the way I see them do it with using putting the whole hook in out provider trips me up because they do it backwards.
What do you mean?
So I thought, let me go back. Let me get my example real quick.
So yeah, you can see right here when I implement UseEffect, it only gets logged once, even when you navigate on the app.
Right. Yeah. No, I just didn't realize. I thought you were only able to use those hooks in like actual functional components, but now it makes sense that, I mean, it doesn't really matter as long as it's a function. I guess you can use it anywhere.
Yeah.
It gets called by React eventually.
Right. So that's kind of like the whole thinking with hooks kind of. I don't know what I'm looking for here. The whole bag, I guess. What I thought was really interesting that somebody showed me was this right here. In Kent's example, maybe I can pull it up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
He just uses use state and passes that stuff through pretty much. So he uses this part here, where he passes the value as count and set count as an array, but
Right.
that's not going to be very helpful if you have other things to pass, because as an array, like, you've got to like make sure that you're keeping that order in mind, and it just makes a lot more sense as an object. So to build out an object of junk that you want to pass down, like, if you notice, I'm passing down a couple functions,
Yep.
and those functions internally use the setter from useState, and then I just pass down the actual state component of useState. So that makes a ton more sense to me, because you can destructure out or import just login if you need it, or just log out, or just is logged in. So I thought that was like a way better pattern. The only part that didn't really make a ton of sense was line 58 in auth context.js, which like, use memo is kind of sorcery still to me. I get what it does from reading the tooltip, but even today I was reading that, like, there's controversy over whether or not to use it. Like, using it too much can slow down your app, and it doesn't necessarily do what you think it does. So it works with or without this, but
Yeah, I mean, I would really need to see what it does under the hood to actually understand what is going on.
yeah, and who knows.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, I thought this was kind of a good example for what an actual login provider might look like.
I do like that, because it kind of makes you're exposing only what you want to expose, really. I mean, I guess in the same context you're doing that with the array as well, but like you said, you can destructure it with an array, but they're going to have to destructure it in the same way, whereas destructuring an object doesn't really matter. And it kind of brings me back to the old way of doing, I guess, classes, if you will, before classes were even a thing, where you had your modules and you only returned, or your public methods or your public things were only a thing that you returned outside of the object.
Right.
That's the old way to do things. So do we want to kind of like dig into this, or continue with this and maybe try to hook it up, or?
I was wondering if you guys wanted to maybe try and, like, if you're done looking through it, or if you want to refer back to it, try and build this functionality into what we have so far.
Sure.
And maybe, I don't know if we want to run the backend yet, or just fake it for now, but.
Excuse me. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't realize. I thought this was actually part of the Quizzy, but I realize now that this is totally separate.
No, this is just kind of like a joke demo thing.
Right.
That implements like the router and all that. So like, I made two separate apps that have like a unauthenticated side and an authenticated side, which only really makes sense, I think, if most of your app is authenticated. Like, if most of your app is, like, for me at work, you know, we have an e-commerce site, so I don't think this would make sense, because most of the site you need to be able to access unauthenticated, and only a tiny portion of it has anything to do with auth.
Right.
So,
yeah. It would make more sense if it was not authenticated and unauthenticated, but more so like maybe like admin and then everything else. Like, for instance, the app that we have, you have your admin section, which is where you definitely need to have authenticate, or I guess admin's a little bit different. You could be authenticated but not be an admin. It really all depends on the business rules, but I think you see where I'm going with that, is like, you'd only have a certain section that would be authenticated, and you would actually just call the module whatever the module is, but you would check to make sure that you're authenticated in that module.
I think this only really makes sense if you have two distinct portions that are, or have very little shared components. Like, if you've got, 90% of these routes are the same, then why would you bother with this? You would probably just want like a route guard built into the route or something, as opposed to copying like this entire file basically. You know what I mean?
Are you able to put route guards onto like React Router or Reach Router or any of those things?
No, you have to build your own, which is another can of worms. So
See, I think because I wonder. So if we were to do so like within authenticated app, and again, this is just me not understanding or knowing React that well, but I understand right here you're doing this so you can have like the login. Would I guess if you're not authenticated, it would redirect to login or something.
you're asking about the two different routes?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is another kind of bit of weirdness with React Router. If you use a switch, it kind of operates like a JavaScript switch where it'll fall through.
Yep.
Whereas if you don't use a switch, you kind of you can't have a default route basically. And so to do a default route with React Router, you've got to have a switch statement and then at the bottom have like no path on the route. And then that one will always match if one previous to it doesn't match. So the thought was, let's say I bookmark a place in the app or something, or I put some garbage route data in instead of having like a 404, because I only have the login page, just redirect to that only valid route. And then if I'm like not logged in, go ahead or if I am logged in, go ahead and take me to dashboard. So like it's just a
would this be dashboard at that point then? Because I guess I'm confused as if this is the authenticated app, why are we trying to direct them to the login screen?
Oh, I misnamed him.
Oh, so you did? Okay, because I asked you that a while ago and you said no, and then I thought it was because you just had it switched, but it is because they are misnamed.
Yeah, that's my mistake.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense to me now then. Because that was the most confusing thing. Because then I would look at this and I'm like, well, that says unauthenticated, but we're going to the dashboard. So
let me try and fix this.
Yeah, no. I totally understand it now. I just wasn't sure if I didn't know that they were switched up.
I was trying to read the source code for the use memo, and yeah, didn't get it.
No,
it's the React source code is kind of hard to read, in my opinion.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah.
Is it just because it's like? Well, I guess I'll just take a look myself. I've never actually looked at the actual source code.
It just takes you through a bunch of things. So like the hook, we pretty much have like a facade. Like use hook stuff is a facade that like breaks into like a couple more files that don't really reference the memo hook, but reference hooks in general. And it's.
I see.
I was file jumping for a bit.
Where exactly would that be?
You want the first file, the entry file to it, or like the whole?
Sure, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, now I've got it fixed, but carry on.
Yeah. All right, perfect.
All right, this is the entry file. It seems that all hooks are built on top of some reducer.
Use contacts for contact. Yeah, they're all on this, resolve dispatcher? Where's that dispatcher? What is this?
I guess OTAB is going on tonight. Well, thanks guys for skipping out on free beer to come hang out and code.
Oh wait, the beer's free.
I've never actually gone to that.
Gotta go. No.
Right here, okay, use memo. Yeah, where is this resolve dispatcher?
Are you guys
On the
literally
file.
looking at the source code right now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So resolve dispatcher is the function all the way at the top, which then triggers React current dispatcher, which is in
yeah.
a separate file. And then when you get in there, it actually just passes it to React Fiber.
Good lord.
And
Oh yeah, okay,
yeah.
here we go. Resolve dispatcher. Yeah, current dispatcher.
So what line is use memo? Oh,
It's towards the bottom, I think.
115.
Yeah.
So if you go here,
Resolve dispatcher.
yeah, that's all the way at the top.
Cool. Dispatcher dot use memo. So I wonder what that is.
You eventually end up at this file, React Fiber hooks.
Okay.
And that's where I do not get a damn thing of what's going on in here.
Oh boy.
React current dispatcher.
Next, create.
React shared internals.
This is some wizard code for sure. I don't know what this is. Is this this is TypeScript, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
I
Yeah,
thought that you
so use memo, it's passing in a type. The T is just a single type. And then this next create is just a function that returns that same type. And then the dependencies is either going to be an array of mixed type, which that mixed, I'm assuming they actually define. So they're defining that's an actual type itself on, or it might be some new TypeScript thing that I'm not aware of yet because I'm still back on like 2.
So it's like a union type or something like that.
Well, yeah, that what you're seeing there, array mix, union void, union null. That's a union type created, but that mixed itself, it's either a type they've created or it's a new thing that I'm not aware of in TypeScript because I'm not up to the latest version of TypeScript. In fact, let's see. TypeScript. Mixed. Yeah, that. Yeah, I don't see it. So I'm
I
assuming.
think line 1343 is what we're looking for.
Yeah. That's the one we were looking at.
Okay. Current hook name and dev. This is a rabbit hole if I've ever seen one.
13. Oh yeah, okay.
Oh man. This code is like repeated a bunch of times.
Yeah, so you're passing in the type and then you're returning that same type.
Oof.
Current hook name and dev equals use memo. Mount hook types dev. Dependencies are array dev. Try return mount memo. What is that?
It's a function that I think looks good.
Trying to find it.
It's 1051.
Yep. Const hook equals mount work in progress hook. Const next dependencies equals dependence. It's equal to undefined null or dependencies. Next value equals next create. I'll see, and this is probably right? That hook.memoize state. I bet you that's like the portion that's just to memo.
Memoized state isn't any type.
Of course it is.
Okay, so I get, without going so deep into what it does, it basically grabs the dependencies or the values from the previous like state, stores them in stores them somewhere, probably like in a use state, maybe wraps use state or something like that, and then it stores them, and then next time I guess it gets called, it calls on those previous dependencies and then compares them to the current ones, right?
Yeah, because like right below update memo, if previous state is not equivalent to null, if next dependencies is not equivalent to null, uh, previous dependencies equals previous state 1, which is going to be the hook memoize state, which I'm assuming is going to actually be next dependencies at that point
Mm-hmm.
if it gets set in the mount memo. And then if our hook inputs equal, so okay, well there you go. So this whole entire thing, this ceremony to do a very basic memoization, which is exactly what it is. Our hook inputs equal next dependencies and previous dependencies. So it grabs whatever it was from before and has the new one, and it checks to see if they're equal. And if they're equal, it then just returns previous state 0, which is actually next value in the mount memo, which is basically the value that it was before.
Got it.
So then, what's the takeaway here?
Long story short, it's supposed to be, yeah, just memoization, but I'm assuming that all the other ceremony that's happening may cause it to not function exactly how people think, I guess.
I'm thinking it has something to do with the diffing engine. And you're either making it work too hard or not work enough or something like that. And you're playing with that by using useMemo.
That's possible.
I think if I saw on the React.js channel earlier, the argument was that it actually uses the virtual DOM part to diff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that was an interesting dive. Let's get back to what we came for.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, let's jump into the Quizzy code.
Yeah. So are we doing localhost again, or are we actually doing it on Code Sandbox this time?
No, let's do it on VS Code.
Okay, who was the link?
1 second. So I posted it in the Slack chat.
Got it.
Join it. So the first thing I guess we can do here is do kind of how you had where what is this? I manage the auth state, here's the auth hook.
So German's working on mocking the back end.
Unless we want to use the actual backend.
No, I don't think so. Not yet, at least. It's probably just going to take us like 20 minutes just to spin that up. So.
Oh, come on.
Well, considering like by the time I download it and clone it and
Yeah. No,
pull all the dependencies and all that garbage. Let's just start over with the auth context
sure.
and kill this and try and do it right, I guess. So I know, well, probably like everything from here to here. Okay. So, first thing we do is make a context.
Yep.
And then we want to do like a use context. So and then we can do like something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then just return context. Side note, I had a boss that hated this. He was like, you must use curly braces. I was like, well, why?
Oh, hated the single line.
Yeah, the one-liner if statement.
Yeah, I tend to use the curly braces, but I'm not like one of those. I'm not a stickler by any means.
Props. Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road, really.
Right.
So in here we would want to import whatever germ is working on. So we'd have like, I guess we could start off with like a logged in state. And just set it to false. And then we have to, at the very least, return
Is this what doing the auth provider, and then the value, and then the children?
yes. Trying to follow. Okay, auth context is what we need. Dot uppercase provider, super important. Value equal to something. And then spreading props will do the pass through for props.children. And then probably want like a login function, a logout function, and I think that's all I had. I'll take a look real quick. Yeah, and then we set up like a context object,
Right.
which is what actually gets passed down. So log in, log out is logged in. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then this would do set logged in true, set logged in false. Right? Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would just update the state there.
We did apparently kill the app somewhere. So I wonder where this is borked. Okay, so this is trying to pull use off.
Is this? Are you able to do this? So you are. So just return it like that. Okay.
Maybe it's in header.
So, yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to.
I think I'd put the auth provider around app, like at the bottom. Yeah.
No, I'm not following you.
So
Right.
instead of doing it in app.js, I put it in index.js, basically.
Oh, you mean around the React DOM.render for app?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, would that be any different?
It makes a difference for because we need the is logged in state at the app level. Like it has to be passed down into app. So it's kind of a hairy situation to do that. You could wrap it around the export default if you had like a.
I have to pass it. It has to be because you have to be able to use the context with inside app, right? And
Correct.
being able to use the context, the auth context, you have to be a children of the auth provider. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Or be a child, whatever how you want to say it.
So where is this freaking out? Const header.
German, would you be able to turn these into async functions and not have to wrap it around that promise?
I guess.
Well, I'm just
Wait.
because
yeah.
I'm more so used to observables, so I kind of like skipped working with promises like crazy. So I'm trying to figure them out. I mean, I know them at pretty much, but the whole async await is a little bit new to me. So at that point, you would yeah, right, exactly. You would just throw, yeah, exactly.
What is it? Throw new error or throw error?
Yeah, throw error.
Is it better to use new error or just error?
I believe you can just use error, but it would probably be better to use new. Or yeah, I'm sorry. I think if you're catching the error, then you can just throw error. But yeah, if you're doing an actual error, you do throw new errors. Right?
Oh boy, going nuts on this fake backend JS.
It was already done. Somebody requested to use modern stuff.
What's that?
That was already done. Just have to refactor
Yeah,
it
I know. I just me securing what I think I know. Well, I think you could keep the set timeout, I believe, huh? Yeah, because the set timeout's outside of that. You would just return instead of just resolving.
But then I would be returning the set timeout, wouldn't I?
Well, no, you would return inside of the set timeout. I would think.
So if I do return, and then we have the data object in here.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
I don't even know. At that point, you may.
Is the fake token just a bunch of garbage data?
It's a token I had in Postman, so just
Oh.
grabbed it.
Okay.
I figured to use something that looks like a JWT.
Sure.
Mm.
So what are you guys working through right now?
Just setting up the backend. It was set up originally in a promise, but we're trying to set it up now in a sync
function,
which returns a promise.
Right.
But
yeah, because in the you would still want to technically use the try catch, I think. And
well, I was thinking because if I try catch here, I'm still gonna just throw another error, so it actually gets caught at the application.
Right. Yeah.
No,
right. I'm thinking. Yeah. If you were calling a function, you'd want to do a try catch, but you don't necessarily need to do that there.
So with async await, you always return a promise.
Right.
So I think this would work.
Yeah.
If you return set timeout, you're going to get a number back though.
Yeah, I think you don't have to actually return the set timeout. It would just run, and then what would be returned from there, I think, would return as the promise.
I don't know if that would work.
I'm not sure of that.
No. Oh, can we await set timeout?
I don't think so.
No, that's not gonna work.
I
don't think there's a way to do it without eventually needing to like.
I think you would
sort of callback.
Yeah, I think you would have to make a new promise here.
Yeah.
And then resolve it for set timeout.
Or going back in time.
Well, I mean, okay, you can try that. I would have tried doing it the other way and just seeing if it worked first, because you never know.
I know that set timeout returns a number.
No, yeah, I know. I'm saying just when set timeout actually returns itself, if whatever the return value from set timeout is actually returned as a promise.
Yeah, but the window object actually fires that function off. So I think this function would just finish. It'd be like, oh, a set timeout was done. And then it would like not return anything from that. So it's no longer waiting on a promise because there are no more promises.
Yeah, the issue with set timeout is because it's executing on like out of the event loop.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll just test it on my own another time.
You have little faith.
Well, I'm not 100% convinced, but you're probably right.
So this okay, is this ready to get cooking? We can like import this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's save it. And then go into auth context and import it. You called them login and log out? What does fake login take? Username and password? Okay. Okay. Now we just have to check out the login JSX. Okay, so we made some text field components, but then we need state for the login page. And okay, so I think this is wired up on login JSX under pages.
All right, let's check it out.
I think it just needs to pass. I think it just needs a submit event. Okay, yeah, there it is. Login, username, password. Yeah, it should work. I don't know if we brought in React Router yet. Oof.
What port is this running on? 5000?
3000.
All right. Ooh. I've seen some people using refs for their input forms or their inputs labeling. Not sure how much of a valid thing that is. I think we're not.
So username and password's not getting passed in, it seems.
Seems that way.
Let's see here, login.
That's
I wonder, no.
that code should still work because it should be getting passed in empty string.
Well, I even passed something in and it still bombed out.
Oh, on the fake backend.
Hmm?
On the fake backend.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that should still have that context.
Let me do something real quick. Why is it undefined?
Almost as if it's not.
It's not making it all the way over here. But it is defined right before this function gets called.
Wait, where was that?
Oh, the first set of things that come in are undefined. So it kind of triggers this. It kind of calls this function multiple times.
Wait, where?
Where's it calling it multiple times?
Somebody deleted my
Fake login. Sweet corn login. Oh wait, fake login. Oh, I wonder if it's. No, the timeout.
The first values that go into the backend for some reason when you hit login are undefined. Like the first time it hits it, then for some reason it recalls it again, and then the actual values come in. But by then the error is already triggered.
Where is it calling login?
Well, where's this fire login? Oh, on submit. Oh, okay. Well, that's coming from this call. Just call it fake.
Okay, so they are defined here when they go into login.
Right.
So off context. Ah, what the hell did I break?
I don't think it saved.
Yeah, for some reason it comes in as undefined, undefined.
Yep.
That's really weird.
Is it because it's an asynchronous function? Although it makes no sense. What happens if you remove the async from it? I'm just curious. Let me comment this out right here real quick. Come on, reload.
Still comes in undefined, undefined.
Weird. And go to login
And you logged it here, and you got the username and password.
wait. Yeah. So, wait a second. So login is coming into the context. The context is part of the value. But just looking at my IntelliSense, whenever we look at login and login page right here, it comes back as with just a value of any. It doesn't know it's a function. So I have a feeling that if we console log out login, it's not going to be a function. Or I don't know. It should be a function because it's calling it at the end.
Well,
No, it came back with a function.
yeah.
It's obviously triggering the auth provider because you're console logging undefined, undefined.
Mm-hmm. This.
It's just a weird... It's weird that it's not passing those values down.
The login. So this actually. Oh, this came through as the empty strings. Okay. So I did see that as the empty strings. But then calling that login. I wonder.
Wait, auth context is calling it twice. That's weird.
What do you mean it's calling it twice?
Maybe that's why we need the use memo stuff. Let's try that.
Where do you keep calling it twice?
In my console, it called undefined, undefined, ASDF, and then the garbage values that I typed in ASDF.
Whoa.
What?
I don't know if that's exactly the syntax or not.
Yeah, it looks right.
It means that it's submitting the login form twice then, huh?
Yeah. This next screen. Oh, it's supposed to be a function.
Oh.
That's PHP. There we go. That's great. Why is my
Oh,
preview?
hold on. Here we go, guys. What about this login button? Is logged in, log out, or call login on button on click?
Oh, what?
On the login button, we have button on click. Is logged in, log out, or call login.
Well, that would do it.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna happen.
Jeez. Where the heck is login button?
It's just
Nuts.
Yeah, so we actually just want to remove that technically.
Yeah, it shouldn't do anything, right?
Yeah, I don't believe so. If we're gonna do it on submit, I mean, I guess. Oh crap! I do want to keep this. I just want is logged in so that we can. Oh, I'll leave it like that for you guys. So that should technically still work and be fine.
That worked.
Well,
Yep.
it's not blowing up as bad as before.
Right. We got uncaught and promise undefined.
I think that's coming from his reject in
Right.
fake backend.
If we're not. Yeah. Right. So we just.
Yep.
Yep. There it is.
So let's remove the memo stuff. Let's see if it still works. Gosh, what a dumb bug.
Yep.
Yep, it works. Wow.
That was fun.
So let's see.
So at that point, well, here at least we'd want to grab the token. What is this? Oh, is it shadowed or something? Token will find value, but never. Oh, okay. And then I forget how you set a cookie.
Cookie or local storage?
Cookie. Because you want to set it as a HTTP only cookie. Oh, just document.cookie. Really?
Ooh.
That's what it's looking like. I've never done it that way.
I think your destructuring didn't work.
Talking to me?
No, German.
Oh, what did I do?
Unless I need to just save this. Yeah, it's saying can't read property data.
Oh. Would you want to do it there? I was thinking. I guess you could do it there.
Oh wait.
I don't think you would, no.
I was saying
I'm
you could do
I'm
it
in the
in
wrong file. I'm in the wrong
the
file.
auth provider. Yeah, in the auth provider.
Where am I? Oh, they're here.
Yeah. Oh, is it it's a data object? I wasn't looking.
Yep.
Oh, data token. Okay.
And my prettier is not working today.
And then it seems that you just do cookie. I've never actually done this before. I'm not gonna lie. I've never actually set a cookie like this. As bad as it sounds, I've always used the
JS cookie?
yeah.
Yeah. You give it like a key value, like name equals value.
Name, yeah, right.
And then semicolon, and then an expiration time that's in like UTC time.
Token equals.
Yeah, definitely better to do that.
Yeah. Token semicolon expires. Oh boy. Just grab this and then kind of.
That would make it automatically defunct.
Yeah, no,
Or are you gonna set it to like 100 years in the future or something?
Yeah, I was probably just do like date dot whatever 10 or a day in the future or something like that.
Oh, so let me do that one. I'm in. I love JavaScript dates.
Yeah, new date.
Is it bad that I really never ever use cookies?
Yeah, I know. Neither do I really.
If anything, Laravel handles my cookies for me. What I'm trying to figure out is how, like, I know when I work, because I work with Gene, I know he just like they'll use Laravel, but they'll use like they'll use sessions for the single page applications. I haven't figured out how he does it. It's weird.
Use the PHP sessions.
Yeah, as like in a single page application.
Let's just do this.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was trying to do. Would you want to use a session though?
No, cookie, I guess. For a token, I think a cookie's better.
Yeah. I don't know if you'd actually want to use this session.
So something like that.
Sure. And then how do you turn it to an HTTP only?
I think you just add like that. Or something to that effect.
Yeah, I figured it's something like that. Just don't know exactly what it is.
It's kind of weird that you can set up cookie. Wait. There's no way to set an HTTP only cookie from JavaScript because that defeats the purpose of the HTTP cookie.
Oh, is that true?
Huh. So then how? I mean, yeah, I guess that makes sense, but
So the server would have to do it?
just set it as such in the server side using whatever server-side language the server side is using. Wow, that was an interesting sentence. If JavaScript is absolutely necessary in this, you could consider to just let it send some AJAX request with some specific request parameter, which triggers a server-side language to create an HTTP-only cookie.
That's lame.
Yeah, right?
That kind of defeats the whole point.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, at that point, you're not setting it.
I guess you would need the server when it creates the JWT to respond with the cookie that it sets. And then set that token that way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I wonder where that would actually get set. Like how, because the reason for the HTTP only cookie is so that you can't access it through JavaScript. So that being said, I mean, JavaScript has access to all cookies, I assume.
Correct.
Because it's client side. So technically you would, if it's an HTTP only cookie, it wouldn't be able to be stored anywhere on the client.
No, so the way it works with HTTP only cookie, so you'll set that in your backend. So when you log in, instead of responding with a token, you respond with a cookie that has a token in it. So the browser takes care of storing that cookie, and then when it's time to go ahead and send back anything back to the server to like make a request and it needs to be authenticated, the request goes back up with the cookie that the browser attaches automatically to the
German's
request.
got it. So all your cookies come with all your requests anyway. So
if we wanted to go ahead and be able to deal with this, like for right now, we can kind of like make a let's call it like some sort of like thing in the front end, like my fake backend, but like a fake, let's call it like alt storage or something like that.
we could just use local storage also.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we could make it easier and do it that way.
We had this argument last night. I think if you just make
We
your
did.
your tokens just short-lived and you just have a heartbeat method built into your front end, then I mean, unless you're a bank, you really don't have much to worry about.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
German's saying to ping the backend every so often. and then let the backend handle that request, and then set or unset the cookie,
Yeah, you kind of just refresh it. You can like keep
like
a
an
cookie that
interval
has,
or
like,
something.
yeah, like a 5 minute lifetime. Then that becomes a giant pain when you like sending multiple things because you have to use Axios and have some sort of queue. That way, you always have the freshest cookie, the freshest token. But yeah.
Yeah, that's probably beyond most use cases.
I
Even so, we were doing at work,
So
we're
local storage is?
implementing AWS Amplify, which is like Amazon's package for authentication, and even they use local storage. So,
yeah, I mean that's what honestly that's what we use too.
I don't really. I mean, I know that there's the possibility of some cross-site scripting or somehow grabbing that local storage key, but
Right.
I mean, if you have SSL, you're kind of in a good spot, I would think.
Yeah, well, I don't know if SSL necessarily protects you from XSS or not. I'm not sure.
No, not from XSS, but from getting, like, let's say XSS happened and they got the local storage token.
Yeah.
Like, if they went and tried to use it, then, you know, SSL and, like, cores and stuff would help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we can obviously use local storage. It's no big deal.
I mean, let's be honest. We're just practicing, so.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. I thought it was going to be easy to the point where you could just set an actual cookie, but clearly that is not the case.
Yeah. So I don't know. It, like Germ was saying, if you're like a bank or something and you need a super short session, then going through all that ceremony maybe makes sense. But otherwise, like, either just put it in the cookie and be done with it, or use local storage or whatever.
And most bank apps are actually server-side rendered, so you don't really get. From what I've seen, I haven't seen a bank app that's actually like a full single-page application.
They are out there. They
Really?
use a lot of Angular. Yeah.
I was right. You worked for a place that did things.
Yeah, I did.
You worked for what?
I worked for a company that built banking applications.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, we have the utils folder now that has local storage stuff in it. I wrote this file a long time ago, and I keep just copy pasting it into the root project.
What is? What are you doing there?
I don't know what the local storage, yes.
Yeah.
It's just a couple helper methods I made for myself just to like set and get stuff from local storage, and then just kind of like figure local storage out.
What are you talking about?
Local storage JS. So you have a way to get the token, and you have a way to set the token.
Isn't that just native JavaScript what you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have. Okay.
Yeah, because this was originally like either set to like write to like, so I could switch out local storage to set it to write to like session or whatever.
Oh, you're talking about this local storage JS thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you're just using parse and stringify.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As I said, I kind of wrote this file a long time ago, and I've just been making its way into everything.
So, okay. So then do you want to import, I guess, local storage at that point?
Yeah, I mean, you can. It's in the utils folder. you can just import it from index. You can just it's a named export from utils.
Actually, I really, just for any like people out there watching, I really like the JSON parse and stringify because that lets you take an object and turn it into a string and then stick it in local storage, because otherwise you'd have to use, like, for every key value a new entry in local storage.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just like a really hacky but cool way to kind of use local storage as your database and use it as like a NoSQL kind of thing.
Yeah. Have any? Well, we kind of like go along. Have any of you used the actual database that browsers come with?
IndexedDB.
With Pouch? I normally use it with PouchDB.
I used IndexedDB, but I used a wrapper API for it. And I could not tell you what the package was that I used.
Because I remember we did this project with PouchDB and then CouchDB in the backend to try to like get everything to sync. I honestly don't get it how it works, but you can have it to where like the database on the browser is constantly syncing with the one with CouchDB, and then at the same time it's kind of syncing across all clients. It went over my head, but it worked.
I mean, would you use like workers for that? I guess.
No. PouchDB just kind of takes care of synchronizing all the clients to CouchDB from CouchDB, which will run on your backend. PouchDB connects to it. Uses the IndexedDB and just kind of syncs it across all clients.
But how does it connect to it? Through what, like a socket, I'm guessing, or?
It just connects to it. Like if you would just connect, like you just kind of pass it like the URL of where the database, the CouchDB is exposed. So I hosted it on like DigitalOcean backend, and I had like a URL. So you just pass that to a URL with the port that it's running on. You just pass it into Pouch, and then go connect and stuff.
I see. All right, so you have this level storage. So then just import record. So at that point we would do local storage. What is it? Set, I think is how you had it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the only thing we're missing here to kind of finish the auth provider is when it boots up, checking if anything is there.
Yep. So the this would be the point where you would use like UseEffect, like up here. So you call it get auth token?
Yeah.
Do you have to pass that a... Oh, nope. Okay. And then you would just do if token. So this is just checks for the presence of a token, but you could get like crazier and do a fake backend method that would validate the token.
Yeah, I'm not doing that right now.
So that's fine. We can just do this. So you got clear. Okay. So let's see if this works. Seems to. Although logout's not working for some reason. What's going on in fake backend with logout?
Fake backend. It just doesn't return anything. It just resolves.
Wonder why it's not working then.
What error did it throw?
It's none. It's just rejecting. It just says uncaught and promise undefined.
Oh, do I have to pass on the value?
No, it's optional.
On promise. Is it? Are we doing something weird with the button again?
I don't think so. Let's look at login button.
Remove that.
Is logged in is true, should log out. If logged in is false, should log in. No, button seems to be okay.
Okay, so where's the login page?
Wonder if it's.
Where's logout being called? We're not calling logout anymore.
Oh, well maybe that's why.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, good call. Yeah, because it's submitting the form again.
Cool, so let's do this. If is logged in.
You're gonna want to not log in. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. There we go.
Oh, and it'll actually stay logged in.
Yeah, because we're using the local storage thing, remember?
Oh, no. Cool. Cool.
All right. How do you guys feel about this so far?
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting just talking about it and just kind of like nitpicking at ways of thinking about it. Whether at work you kind of just write it as fast as you can.
True.
Yeah. We could want to go a little bit forward. We could change this to like a use reducer, which is simple, but
Where are you at?
on the login for the username and password instead
Yeah.
of two states.
I mean, it's two values. Is there any other value changes going on in this page?
I don't really think there's anything to be gained by that. Unless you had like side effects that you needed to do. Or this form was like huge. Then it kind of makes sense. But because you broke it out into text fields anyway, doesn't really matter.
Well, does React have a way to do like combine this into one and map over it or something, and map over like values?
Yes. Well, you can kind of do this. I know what you're talking about. You can, and you kind of make like a config object or something, and you pass it and kind of renders a form.
You could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what what's the library for forms? Yeah, forms. Formic?
If you're talking about like dynamically creating form fields, yeah, you could do that with some JavaScript, but again, like there's not a whole lot to be gained in this specific example. I think the main problem with this kind of thing in React is that the state has to exist on the form level, and then your text fields kind of need two-way binding, and so they need like statefulness also, but then you need the value of that statefulness, so it kind of gets all crazy.
Yeah, it's not like in Vue where you kind of already have all of that.
Yeah. Angular had reactive forms, which was super nice for this kind of thing, where you could have like a giant form object, but with React you kind of have to implement your own solution for that, or go reach for a form library.
I don't know. I kind of lost as to what you were talking about there. I don't understand why it would be a big or not a good idea to like combine this and kind of like run through I don't know, say a loop of some sort or whatnot. I don't understand why that would be a bad thing.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. I just don't think there's a lot that would be gained from that. But like, I would
Sure.
do.
Yeah, in this exact thing. Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Um, whoa.
I remember there was a time we were writing React was trying to do the thing you talked about, and then they had a bunch of memes about it of who could get the most, like, the dumbest way with to like simplify a form.
You could do something cute like this. I don't know what kind of magic you would need for like the field name, but like the input and set input value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's
But yeah, actually this is not what I wanted,
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know what kind of refactoring we would have to do for that.
No, that's fine. We don't have to do that. I think it would be more so kind of like what Jeremy was saying. You'd have an actual config, like an actual object that had, like, for instance, a label input, like your value, and then your setter. And then you would just loop through that and set one text field, but you would set it each time. Like I've done that a few times to create dynamic buttons in Angular. It's similar to the same effect. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It is overkill just for these two inputs, so that's totally fine. I was more so wondering if you're able to do that.
You can. And I mean, there's certainly a case to be made for figuring out a way to do this with dynamic form fields, but I don't think we're there yet.
Sure.
I think like a reducer makes sense for a form, but I'm not sure how we would maybe you would pass down like the reducer and like a dispatch name or something, like whatever action it was supposed to perform. So like it would get passed down like the name, the value, and then like the key of the action that it needs to fire or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reducer would just kind of live in the login form. I don't know. I'm hoping to do a little bit more with useReducer at some point.
Yeah.
I think that might be a good thing to do for the next one of these. Maybe like we can check out useReducer over the weekend.
Yeah, maybe we can actually have this, like, I don't know, login or whatever, and then we can actually create a form to build, say, like a quiz or a question or something of that nature, so that we're building an actual more of a form where we could try to use that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So, are you guys satisfied? Or I'm thinking this is like a good stopping point. So
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. It seems like this is a good place to.
Is that something like what you meant, Austin?
No.
what is this?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that type of thing, except. Oh, okay. Yep. 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 Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a different syntax than what I'm used to. But yeah, pretty much exactly how
yeah.
that.
This could have a setter in it also.
Yeah, I used to do it. Like I know the pattern you're talking about because I do it a lot with Vue. Because
Mhm.
Vue has that little nice vmodel method, vmodel directive to it.
Austin,
That
have you ever used Vue?
I have not. It's one of those things where like I don't want to try and like learn two frameworks at the same time.
That's fair.
But I really like, especially like seeing you guys talk in the View channel, and not only that, I've kind of looked at it, and to be honest with you, it looks a heck of a lot more straightforward than React. Like React to me seems a little,
Yes, 100%.
yeah, I'll just say backwards at times, if you know what I'm saying. But Vue just seems very simple. It looks just like a massive object almost, with just like your methods and stuff, kind of how you used to build old school JavaScript option or objects to mimic quote unquote classes.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it, like it's more direct because you have events. You kind of like talk to components with events. So it's like really similar to Angular in my opinion.
Yeah,
More bits have used Angular.
Yep, and that's exactly what I kind of got. Which it's funny because coming from an Angular background, like I saw this syntax and I saw that and I was like, oh man, this I'd be able to get up to speed with this in a heartbeat.
Yeah, coming from Angular into Vue was very pleasant.
Yeah, I bet.
JSX is kind of it's not the best developer experience, I think. Even though I love JavaScript, like writing templates with JavaScript is kind of it seems like it would be cool, but then when you do it, you're like, ugh.
I mean, you can do some pretty stupid stuff with it though. Like,
yeah,
I have a project, the one I was working on, where all my modals I kind of reword it into hooks. So I have a modal provider that you can call in. You pass it in you can pass it in JSX, and whatever you pass in as JSX is what renders inside the model. So there's technically one modal component for the whole app. It's weird.
See, and that's I just did that. I just did that for Angular as well. I made a shared component, a modal component, but it's a basically a shell, if you will. It's a modal shell, and then you have ng content. You can project any content into that modal. That way, you only have one modal component, but it's able to be as dynamic as possible, and you can pass anything into it, and it'll build it out. So, yeah. I mean, I actually wrote that, but it sounds like it'd be a little convoluted to build in React.
That's the provider in React. I just posted it on the channel.
Yeah, I see it now. See, that's the thing, though, is you're having to build this modal provider, which to me is really weird because, like, just coming from, like, again, the Angular background, like, I would just build a modal component, and I would just use that modal component. I'd call it, and it would be able to be used anywhere.
So I think what prompted the provider is having that modal really high up in the app structure, and
Correct.
then that way you can trigger it from anywhere, and it will be able to do the modal thing and like cover the screen and be front and center, as opposed to if you just pulled in a modal component anywhere, like you would maybe have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to get it to do the modal thing where it pops up on top of everything.
No, because you use React Portal.
That's all it is.
What's that?
You would end up using because at the end of the day, when you use a modal, at some point you need to kind of like, out of like all the markup you have, like make another component next to it. So you kind of use React Portal to kind of pop in all the stuff into another section of the DOM, if it makes sense. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. That's another thing I haven't messed with is portals.
But what do you need to do that for? Like, what is the use case for that? I mean, why would you want that outside?
Outside what?
Well, okay, I'm guessing the way you're saying it is you have it like with the modal outside of your, I'm guessing app context or something, or next to your app context. Like, would it be outside of your container, if you will? Like, if you had a container
Yes.
div or something inside of your body, it would be like next to your container.
Yes.
So what is the use case for that? Like, why is that? What is?
I have no idea. I've always done modals like that. I've always like popped out modals, like put them all the way at the bottom of the markup, like all the markups, so outside all my other markup, and then just render them there. I don't know why. I've just always done it that way.
Yeah, that I mean, because to me, like with the modal component with an Angular, it's a modal component, and sure, it loads, it comes into the DOM when you trigger it, but I mean, it's just exactly as if you were to do a regular modal. I mean, to be able to have it pop on top of anything, that's all CSS. Like you can have that happen via CSS. It doesn't matter where it is in the DOM. So I guess I don't know what is the use case for having the modal HTML outside of the container itself.
Yeah, I am like for example, like I know Bootstrap does it that way, so I kind of picked up that thing from like looking at the Bootstrap examples. So that's why I ended up doing it like that. I'm pretty sure it works any other way. Not sure of anything to do with accessibility. Maybe, I'm not sure.
I guess the only thing I could see with that, and this is something I've been looking to do, is how you lock the like the keyboard events and everything inside of the modal itself.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know how to do, and maybe that is something that you could. Well, I don't know why that would. You know what I mean? Like for accessibility, to be able to lock the keyboard events, tabbing and all that, only with inside of the modal, so it's not, you're not tabbing through things behind it. That's the only. I mean, that is a good theory, and that would be my only understanding use case as to why you would pull that out.
I'm curious. I'm gonna research that.
Yeah, I'm curious myself, because that was the thing is I originally created a dynamic modal component that would build dynamically outside of the container context, but we had to jump through hoops and all this, and we had to pass through basically, I mean, in so many ways, this type of deal, we have to pass through the data, you have to pass through the component that you want to build into it and everything like that. And it was just it was a lot of ceremony just to get this thing to build out, when all you have to do is just have a simple modal component and just project the content in.
Okay.
But anyways.
Well, maybe we can look into that also and maybe tackle that on the next one.
Yeah, because I'm totally curious as to what the use case would be for that.
All right.
Cool.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess that's a wrap then.
All right. I will. Thanks everybody for joining us, and if you're on the replay, yeah, look forward to the next one.